So Good They Can't Ignore You, by Newport. Introduction. A young man named Thomas stands in an oak forest, high in the Catskill Mountains. The air is crisp, the leaves are turning, and the silence is broken only by the sound of his own breathing, which soon turns to quiet sobs. This is the last place he expected to find himself in tears. You see, Thomas had done what every graduation speaker, every career counselor, every inspirational poster had told him to do. He had followed his passion. For years, he'd nurtured a dream of living a life of quiet contemplation, of seeking profound meaning through Zen Buddhism. And he'd made it. He was living at the Zen Mountain Monastery, a place he had fantasized about for years. It was supposed to be the amazing meal for his hungry soul. He'd woken up at 4:30 in the morning for silent meditation. He grappled with baffling Zen puzzles called koans, spending months on a single one until his mind finally cracked it open. He had, by all measures, reached the zenith of his passion. He was a true Zen practitioner. And yet, standing in that forest, he felt a crushing disappointment. Nothing had changed. He was the same person, with the same anxieties and the same worries. He had followed his passion to the ends of the earth, and it hadn't delivered the happiness he was promised. His fantasy had crumbled around him. Thomas's story is where we begin our journey today, into a book that might just be one of the most important you'll ever encounter as you think about your future. It's called So Good They Can't Ignore You, and its author, Newport, is not your typical career guru. He's a computer science professor who earned his PhD from MIT. He deals in logic, in evidence, and in systems that work. And he has a message that is as liberating as it is radical. The idea to follow your passion is not just flawed advice, it's dangerous advice. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you the powerful alternative that Newport offers. We're going to dismantle this myth of passion, and in its place, we'll build a new framework, a clearer, more reliable blueprint for creating a life and a career that you truly love. This isn't about finding a magical job that was destined for you. It's about building one. By the end of our time together, you'll understand a secret that very few people ever learn, that the key to work you love is not about finding the right work, but about working right. And that changes everything. Book summary. Let's start with one of the most iconic figures in modern history, Steve Jobs. In his famous 2005 Stanford commencement speech, he stood before thousands of graduates and told them, "You've got to find what you love. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle." Millions of people watched that speech and took it as gospel. It became the ultimate validation for what Newport calls the passion hypothesis. The idea is simple. The key to happiness is to first figure out what you're passionate about, and then find a job that matches that passion. It's an appealing story, isn't it? The brave hero who has the courage to follow their heart. But here's the problem. When you look at how Steve Jobs actually started, the story falls apart. If you had met a young Steve Jobs before he founded Apple, you wouldn't have seen a man passionate about technology or business. You would have seen a conflicted young man with long hair who walked around barefoot, studied dance and Eastern mysticism, and dropped out of college. He took a night shift job at Atari because the ad said, "Have fun and make money." He spent his time between that job and a commune. He even took off for several months to go on a spiritual journey through India. Apple Computer wasn't born from a deep, pre-existing passion. It was the result of a lucky break, a small-time scheme to sell a few circuit boards to local hobbyists that unexpectedly took off. Their initial plan was to make about $1,000 in profit. They weren't dreaming of taking over the world. Jobs did grow to become passionate about his work. There's no doubt about that. But that passion was a result of his success, not the cause of it. The passion came later. This messy, unpredictable path isn't just true for Steve Jobs. It's the rule, not the exception. Newport points to a project called Road Trip Nation, where a group of friends traveled the country interviewing successful people about how they found their way. Again and again, they heard the same story. Ira Glass, the famous host of the radio show This American Life, told them, "In the movies there's this idea that you should just go for your dream. But I don't believe that. Things happen in stages." He talked about the long, hard years it took him to get good at radio. "The key thing," he said, "is to force yourself through the work, force the skills to come. That's the hardest phase." This leads us to the first big truth of this book: passion is rare. A study of Canadian university students found that while 84% of them had a passion, the top 5 were things like dance, hockey, skiing, and reading. These are wonderful hobbies, but they're not careers for most people. Less than 4% of their passions were related to work or education. So, if we're all supposed to follow our passion, what do we do when we don't have one that leads to a job? The second truth is that passion takes time. A Yale researcher named Amy Vajasnevsky studied people in all kinds of jobs, from doctors to administrative assistants. She found that the strongest predictor of someone seeing their work as a calling, as a core part of their identity, was not the type of job they had, but the number of years they'd been doing it. The more experience they had, the more likely they were to love their work. Think about that for a moment. Passion isn't something you find, it's something you cultivate. It grows as you become better at what you do, as you develop mastery, and as you build strong relationships with your colleagues. And this brings us to the most dangerous part of the passion hypothesis. When you believe there's a magical right job out there waiting for you, it makes you hyper-aware of everything you don't like about your current job. The boring tasks, the difficult boss, the frustrations, they all become evidence that you're in the wrong place. This leads to chronic job hopping and a constant, nagging feeling of anxiety. The statistics back this up. Over the past few decades, as the follow your passion mantra has gotten louder, job satisfaction has steadily gone down, especially among young people. So if follow your passion is the wrong map, what's the right one? This is where Cal Newport introduces a powerful new idea, and it's summarized in a piece of advice from the comedian Steve Martin. When Martin was asked for his advice for aspiring performers, he said, "Nobody ever takes note of my advice, because it's not the answer they wanted to hear. What they want to hear is here's how you get an agent. But I always say, be so good they can't ignore you. Be so good they can't ignore you." This simple phrase is the key to everything. It represents what Newport calls the craftsman mindset. The craftsman mindset is the opposite of the passion mindset. The passion mindset focuses on what the world can offer you. It asks, is this job my true calling? Does it make me happy? It's a self-centered approach, and it leads to endless confusion. The craftsman mindset, on the other hand, focuses on what you can offer the world. It asks, what value am I producing? How can I get better at my craft? It's an output-centric approach. It doesn't matter if you're a musician, a programmer, or a tax consultant. You put your head down and you focus on becoming incredibly skilled. Newport introduces us to a young guitar player named Jordan Tice. Jordan lives in what he calls the bluegrass frat house. His room is tiny, almost like a monk's cell. And every day, for hours, he sits there and practices. Not just playing songs he already knows, but pushing himself just past his comfort zone, playing faster than he's able to, stretching his abilities until his fingers ache and his breath comes in sharp gasps. It's hard, uncomfortable work. But that's how you get good. This focused, difficult practice is the engine of the craftsman mindset. It's what scientists call deliberate practice. It's not about just putting in hours. It's about systematically stretching your abilities and getting immediate feedback. Most people, in most jobs, avoid this kind of mental strain. They get to an acceptable level and then they plateau. But if you can embrace the discomfort of deliberate practice, you can blow past your peers and become truly exceptional. Now, why is becoming so good they can't ignore you so important? Because it generates the one thing you need to build a great career: career capital. Career capital is Newport's term for rare and valuable skills. Think of it like a currency. The traits that make a great job great, things like creativity, impact, and control over your time, are themselves rare and valuable. Basic economics tells us that if you want something rare and valuable, you need something rare and valuable to offer in return. Career capital is what you offer. The passion mindset tells you that you can have a great job right now, just by having the courage to demand it. Career capital theory says that's nonsense. You need to earn it. You don't get a great job and then get good. You get good, and then you can demand a great job. This is the foundation. First, you adopt the craftsman mindset. You focus on building career capital through deliberate practice. Then, once you have that capital, you can invest it. You cash it in for the traits that make a job amazing. Newport focuses on two of the most powerful traits you can buy with your capital: control and mission. Let's talk about control. Control over what you do and how you do it is what Newport calls the dream job elixir. It's one of the most powerful drivers of happiness and fulfillment at work. He tells the story of Ryan and Sarah, who run a successful organic farm called Red Fire Farm. People look at their life and romanticize it, working outdoors, in harmony with the land. But the reality is that farming is incredibly hard work. They're not just enjoying the sun, they're battling the weather. Ryan spends all winter on Excel spreadsheets planning his crops. The appeal of their life isn't the absence of hard work, it's the autonomy. They are in complete control of their lives, and they have the skills to make it work. But Ryan didn't just wake up one day and decide to be a farmer. He started as a kid, selling blueberries from his parents' garden. He slowly and deliberately built up his farming skills for nearly a decade before he bought his first piece of land. He had a massive store of career capital before he made his big move for control. This is critical, because trying to get control without having career capital is what Newport calls the first control trap. He tells the story of a young woman named Jane, who dropped out of college to pursue an adventurous life of unicycling across Australia and dog sledding across Antarctica. Her plan to fund this was vague: to build a set of low-maintenance websites. But she had no valuable skills to offer. She had courage, but no capital. And her plan quickly fell apart. She couldn't even afford to eat. Control without capital is not sustainable. But there's a second trap. Let's say you do have the capital. You've become so good they can't ignore you. You're incredibly valuable to your employer. This is the exact moment when you face the second control trap. When you're valuable, your employer doesn't want to give you more control. They want to keep you right where you are, doing the valuable work you do for them. So they'll offer you promotions, a raise, a corner office, anything to keep you from taking your capital and using it to gain more autonomy for yourself. Newport tells the story of Lulu Young, a software developer who repeatedly fought for more control. Early in her career, after she taught herself to automate the testing process at her company, she demanded a 30-hour workweek so she could study philosophy. Her bosses didn't like it, but she was too valuable to lose, so they agreed. Later, she turned down a major promotion to go work for a tiny startup because it offered more creative freedom. People thought she was nuts. But she knew what she was doing. She was investing her capital in control. Eventually, she became a highly paid freelance developer who could take a month off to travel whenever she wanted, or take a Friday off just because the weather was nice for flying her plane. So how do you navigate these two traps? How do you know when you have enough capital to make a bold move? Newport gives us a simple, brilliant rule he learned from the entrepreneur Derek Sivers, who sold his company, CD Baby, for $22 million and then gave it all away to a charitable trust. Sivers' rule is this: the law of financial viability. Before you make a big leap for more control, ask yourself one question: are people willing to pay you for it? Paying can mean customers buying your product, a publisher giving you a book deal, or your current employer agreeing to your new terms. Money, Sivers says, is a neutral indicator of value. If people are willing to pay for your idea, you have the capital to proceed. If they're not, you need to go back to building more. That's how you get control. But there's one more ingredient to a truly remarkable career: mission. A mission is a unifying focus for your working life. It answers the question, what am I doing with my life? It's what gives your work a sense of purpose and impact. Newport introduces us to Pardis Sabiti, a brilliant young professor at Harvard. While many young academics become cynical and overworked, Pardis is full of energy and joy. She plays in a rock band and has a lab volleyball team. Her happiness comes from the fact that her career is built on a powerful mission: to use computational genetics to rid the world of its most ancient and deadly diseases, like Lassa fever and malaria. But here's the crucial point: you don't find a mission by sitting under a tree and thinking big thoughts. Just like control, a mission requires career capital. Great missions, Newport explains, are discovered at the cutting edge of a field. They live in what scientists call the adjacent possible, the space of innovations that are just beyond what is currently known. To see what's in the adjacent possible, you have to first get to the cutting edge. And getting there requires mastering rare and valuable skills. Pardis Sabiti didn't start with her mission. In high school, she was obsessed with math. In college, she decided to be a doctor. She went on to get a PhD in genetics at Oxford, and then she still went back to get her medical degree from Harvard. She spent years patiently accumulating capital. It wasn't until she published a groundbreaking paper in a top scientific journal that her mission finally became clear. She had to think small, focusing on a narrow niche for years, before she could act big. Once you have the capital to identify a mission, how do you make it a reality? Newport offers two strategies. First, you use little bets. This idea comes from author Peter Sims, who found that great innovators don't start with a grand plan. They make small, achievable projects to test out their ideas. They learn from a series of small failures and small wins. This is the story of Kirk French, an archaeologist who had a mission to popularize his field. He didn't just decide to host a TV show. He made a series of little bets. He tried digitizing an old documentary. He tried raising money for a new one. Then, on a whim, he decided to film himself investigating a crazy call from a man who thought he'd found the treasure of the Knights Templar in his backyard. It was that last little bet, a project he thought might just be useful for his intro classes, that got seen by a TV producer and turned into the Discovery Channel show American Treasures. The second strategy is to think like a marketer. This is the law of remarkability. For a project to succeed, it must be remarkable in two ways. First, the idea itself must be a purple cow, something so interesting that it compels people to talk about it. Second, it must be launched in a venue where that kind of talking is easy and encouraged. Giles Boquet, a programmer, had a mission to combine art and computer code. He created a program called Archaeopteryx, an AI that could write and perform its own electronic dance music. That was his purple cow. And he launched it in the open-source software community, a venue perfectly designed to spread the word about remarkable projects. This project made him a rock star in his field and gave him the freedom to build the career of his dreams. So this is the path. It's a journey that begins not with a flash of passionate insight, but with a quiet commitment to craftsmanship. You put aside the question, "What is my true passion?" and you ask instead, "How can I become so good they can't ignore me?" You build your career capital, brick by brick, through deliberate practice. You then wisely invest that capital to gain more control over your life, carefully navigating the traps along the way. And finally, from your position at the cutting edge of your field, you identify a mission that gives your work meaning and allows you to make a real impact on the world. It's not a simple path. It requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. But it is a path that is available to anyone, in any field. And as we see from the stories in this book, it's a path that reliably leads to a career and a life that you love. Commentary. When you put this book down, the world looks a little different. The constant pressure that society, especially on young people, puts on you to find your passion suddenly seems hollow. It feels like being told to find a unicorn. You can spend your whole life searching for something that may not even exist, all the while feeling like a failure for not having found it yet. Cal Newport gives us permission to let go of that burden. He replaces a fuzzy, romantic notion with a concrete, logical, and deeply empowering alternative. The central message, that working right trumps finding the right work, is one of the most profound career insights I've ever come across. It shifts the power back to you. It says that you don't have to wait for the perfect opportunity to fall from the sky. You can create it. You can build it, skill by skill, project by project. What I find most powerful about this book is how it redefines what it means to be ambitious. Ambition isn't just about dreaming big, it's about thinking small. It's about the quiet dedication to your craft, the daily discipline of deliberate practice, the patience to accumulate value over time. Pardis Sabiti spent years in the academic trenches before her world-changing mission became visible. Jordan Tice spent countless hours alone in a small room, pushing his fingers to move just a little bit faster. That is where great careers are forged, not in a moment of grand revelation, but in thousands of moments of focused, difficult work. So, what can you do with this, right now, as you stand at the beginning of your own journey? First, I want you to pick one skill. It could be anything: writing, coding, public speaking, playing an instrument, even a subject in school. For the next month, adopt the craftsman mindset toward it. Don't just do it, practice it deliberately. Find the edge of your comfort zone and push just beyond it. Track your hours. Seek ruthless feedback. Experience the mental strain of getting better. See what happens when you focus on the quality of your output instead of just going through the motions. Second, give yourself permission to stop worrying about your one true calling. It's a myth. Instead of searching for passion, search for opportunities to become rare and valuable. Look for what Newport calls open gates, chances to build skills that are already available to you. Your interests will evolve as your skills do. Passion will find you, but only after you've put in the work. Let it be a happy side effect of mastery. And finally, start looking at the world through the lens of career capital. When you see people with amazing jobs that give them freedom, creativity, and impact, don't just see the end result. Ask yourself, what rare and valuable skills did they have to acquire to get there? What did they offer in return for that great life? When you start thinking this way, you'll see the blueprint everywhere. You'll understand that a remarkable life isn't a gift, it's something you build. That was a summary of So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. We've walked through the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful city. It can show you the layout, but it can't give you the feeling of walking the streets yourself. The real magic of this book is in the stories, the details, and the quiet moments when one of Newport's ideas connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is here to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's about fundamentally changing the way you think about your future. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that this work is helping, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep building our wisdom together.